Ian.
All right.
We're good here. Oh, sorry, I should mute that.
That was a cool sound check.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I call this meeting of the Isla Vista Community Service District Policy Committee to order at 6:02 p.m. We'll announce that this meeting is being recorded, and I would say, Jonathan, can you do a roll call?
Yes, Director Freeman.
Here.
Director Aguilar. Here. Dr. Craig is not.
All right, we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the lands that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Moving on to agenda item 2, public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter or jurisdiction of the policy committee that are not on the agenda. The committee will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Jonathan, is there any public comment?
Yes.
Seeing none, moving on to item 3, item 3, discussion action items 3.1, community center policy. The committee will review the proposed community center policy, give direction to staff, and or recommend the policy to the board.
All right, so today we have two policy. These are extremely draft. I see the community center ones, unfortunately not in there.
Yeah, I was actually about to say that I will admit that I did look at the community flyer policy,
okay,
but I did not look at the community center policy, and now that I clicked on it, there is not one.
I apologize. Yeah, that was just an oversight. I was out last weekend. I didn't get
surely awesome. Let's do this.
Okay, so we have two policies. They're both very early concepts right now, so nothing at all is set in stone. It's just brainstorm ideas of, do you want us to keep going down this route or not, essentially. But they do cover what we've been talking about, like the board meetings and such. But for the community center, for example, establishing a private rental system eventually. So how can we do all that? Plus, so I'll share my screen, and Maya's on the call to answer questions. She wrote all this. I didn't. I had nothing to do with this, but I reviewed it and thought she did a great job. But she wrote all of these. So I will. Let me just go. We can go one by one. It's several little policies. And again, the formatting is just the formatting. We can put it into our system later, but there's several issues essentially that we've noticed in the last year and a half of running the spaces that we may need policies to address things that we've never had policies for to address that are pretty normal policies that other spaces have. So the first one is the cleanup policy. It's a major issue we've been facing is people not leaving the place clean after their use. And so this one has some, what their responsibilities are very clearly of cleaning. And then if they're not doing it, then there'll be articles below that say what happens next if you keep violating our policies. Maya, do you want to add anything here before we get to the protocols for violations?
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to say that we do make what people are supposed to do very clear. We send out a checklist of things that need to get done in addition to also sending out in our email a checklist. We post it physically. So it's never a question of what do I need to do as my responsibility to clean up the space? It's just whether or not people are doing it. So the protocols that you'll see below is just a result of that. So you can kind of see first offense, I think is pretty common throughout the entire thing. First offense, we have a little quiz. And we kind of want to make it specific to the type of problem that they're causing. So first offense would be take a quiz on what the rules are. Next time you'll know the rules a little bit better, right? And then they kind of increase in severity after that. If we need to do a cleaning fee and it continues to happen, this is $200 is based on about how much a deep clean is for Big Green. I think a deep clean is actually a little bit more expensive, but around this price is what I ballparked it at. And attending a meeting with us to talk about it after the first time. So you did the quiz, you know the rules, but you're still not doing it. And then the third offense is when we talk about a timeline of a suspension. You can't use the space for a set amount of time after. And then reporting
think-
offenses. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you have the suspension in the third offense too. Right here.
Second offense.
Second offense, sorry, yeah, you have it in both.
But then, yeah, so that's for a quarter versus a year.
Oh, yes. Yes, and also these are just like things
Oh.
that I made up.
Yeah,
Totally
that's for
subject.
reserving space, but the other one is accessing, like we're actually banning them from entering the premises?
Maybe not, I think it's reserving, it just means
Reserving. Yeah, that's just a wording thing.
Okay.
People can still come to the space, more on like the user side of it. Good catch.
And then there's the reporting process, and enforcement is by us.
And again, this is something we
question that I
already
have-
require. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, a question that I have, but I feel is important to analyze this, is how often are the people who are making these offenses against the cleaning process repeat users of the space? Like, are a lot of the people who are not cleaning up the space people who are reserving it once and then not coming back, or are they the people who are reserving it occasionally such that these suspensions matter, these concepts of second and third offense, like?
That's a really good question. I would say most often it's people that use the space once and then we send them an email saying, hey, can we talk about the fact that you left in a mess? And then they won't respond. So that's one.
And you never hear from them ever again, and at that point I might argue that this might not solve the majority of our problem.
However, I will say most of the time when it's a big mess, that's what I'm seeing. But I will say that there are just people who might use the space once and don't know exactly that they need to take the trash out to the dumpster. That's a really easy thing that we can just teach people. Hey, next time you use the space, make sure you take the trash all the way out to the dumpster. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. It's not that like everyone who regularly uses the space leaves it a total wreck, but it's like, kind of creating this standard that like, let's leave the space nicer than when we found it. Let's not just like rush out at the end of our day, that type of thing.
And that is related to another question I had, which is what kinds of offenses are we seeing most often? So like, you mentioned things like wiping down surfaces, where it's the point where it's actually like stuff might be sticky, stuff might actually accumulate ants, stuff might, you mentioned like the cost for deep cleaning versus whether people are not moving the furniture, that does require, actual like effort from somebody to move the furniture, but at least it doesn't necessarily potentially cause a permanent problem in the space versus people who are, forgetting to take one trash bag out or something like that. Like, I'm curious, like, what is the scope of the problem that we're experiencing?
Most often it's going to be the trash. That's my top problem I face. Second one is putting things away in the storage space, which that's been a problem since I first reopened the center. And I do think I have my organization finally down. So hopefully that's going to improve, just based on some like moving things around. And then the third thing is people leaving items in the center. So I'm talking like someone left a mini fridge and a huge table in there. That was a complete mystery. so those are the biggest things I'm seeing is trash, the kitchen as well, leaving the kitchen gross, and the storage, like putting things back where they belong.
I could see it being very easy for somebody to think, even with a checklist of thinking that, well, if the trash is in the trash can, that's not my job to take it out. That's somebody else's job. And maybe we need to be like, have like a sign next to the trash can or something to try to change that, but I'm just trying to think through the ways of avoiding the problem as opposed to figuring out punishments for the problem. But
right, we do have the checklist posted, and on the checklist it does specifically say to take the trash out to the dumpster. And we do send out
does it say? I think it might be interesting to have it specifically state to take the trash that is in the trash, even trash that is in the trash cans that are in our facility. Because like I could see myself seeing that on the list and being like, oh, well, clearly if I have any excess trash here, maybe some of these events that I ran there, I brought my own trash cans. And like if I've got a bunch of trash there, I need to take it to the dumpster. But like I could see a feeling of like, well, it's this trash is organized in the trash can. Isn't that the trash that like I should be taking out their trash can? That seems kind of weird. not saying you shouldn't have that do it. I'm just thinking that like if that's a common problem and that is like, but they're doing other stuff that seems more difficult. It might be a matter of like making certain that like what is different about that task. And I could see that being something that I would accidentally not do, maybe even on purpose. Like I would like think about it and be like, no, I don't think that's what they mean, and then not do it. So
Yeah, and I would say it's probably the hardest thing on the list too, is to actually take out the trash from the trash cans and walk all the way across the parking lot to the dumpster. Like I can see that being just something that even if you see it, you might not want to do it, you know?
sure. I mean, I would think that putting all of the chairs and tables back is the hardest thing myself, because that actually is like requires a lot of strength sometimes and effort and takes
Right.
time but
Yeah. Well, do you guys have different thoughts on maybe how to structure the cleaning policy? It already says in our policy that they must clean, but it's super simple. It just says you must clean. So this is kind of fleshing it out a little more. So we don't have to have the offenses. I thought the quiz was a good offense. Like, you gotta, show that you know the problem and maybe it's just a misunderstanding. But anything else?
I'm wondering if we should, in the cleanup responsibility, those 1.1s, et cetera, if we should, I don't know if that's the totality of the checklist. If it is, then that's what I want. But if it isn't, then I think that we should have either like a link or like a C like reservation cleanup checklist that is like posted in the building, or posted in these 3 locations within the building, or that kind of a thing.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to put the actual checklist in because then it would make it so we couldn't change the checklist without going to the policy. But it
Got you, yeah.
Reference the checklist.
Reference like publicly posted checklists in these locations.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, because they are always posted, so I can actually reference where they'll be too. I like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's unlikely that a user will be looking at this policy.
No, we would translate it into simple stuff.
Yeah, so like they'd have to go digging on our website to like find this policy. So like,
I mean, they could see, they would see it, but only if they wanted to.
Yeah, so I feel like it should reference like equally like some of these public documents, and maybe there's like a version of the quiz or version of a quiz that happens like when one is reserving the room, like, or maybe it's like review, like there's some kind of reviewing of the checklist in 24 hours or 72 hours before their event, kind of a thing. But I don't know if that's already adding too many steps. Like I haven't used a room, so I don't know if there's like a ton of steps and we don't want to do that.
No, they do get a copy of the checklist upon their confirmation, so they do have it before they even enter the space. They'll have a copy of it in their email, in addition to it being posted. Is that what you kind of mean, or do you mean like in the same day, kind of resend it?
I feel like it would be nice. I mean, maybe it's just because my age now, I get like more anxious about things where I'm like the day of, I'm like looking at my like to do, like this is what's happening, my big event kind of a thing. And I would look for my email confirmation, but I don't think it's necessary that it has to be sent out twice. Like I feel like most users probably wouldn't feel that need. I was just trying to like spitball on your idea, Jay, of like what can we provide with our user before that might help them like not have that mind slip. As far as the way this policy is like written, like I don't think any of these offenses or protocols for offenses are unfair or something that I would disagree with. I think they're all very fair.
I mean, if I'm less sure about that on the idea that if, for example, the issue is not taking out trash, if the second offense will incur a $200 professional cleaning services fee, that seems a little bit extreme.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it depends on what the offense is, what it is that we're trying to get at. And that's why, like, I start putting on my like UI UX designer hats, and I'm like, okay, well, what is like the data oriented approach here is to start with like what are the offenses and who are committing them, and then can we take the like highest slice of that intersect pie and see how can we minimize it by changing wording or changing the infrastructure. And it's just because I like from my questions I've asked here, like it sounds like a lot of the offenses are being incurred by people that are only using the space once. The second and third offense paragraphs here are really that interesting to me. Then like it's like, well, what are the offenses? If a lot of the offenses are people not taking out trash, I actually can see people not doing that because it's really confusing. And so trying to really figure out how to like double down on making that something that's obvious, even if it requires different kinds of trash cans, maybe not providing trash cans and saying you must bring your own trash cans to the event. Like if somebody just has like a bag that's standing there, they'll remember to take that out, I think, versus like a trash can. Just something that like changes the way of what's happening, because there's always this feeling of like, do I punish the user or do I just figure out a way to guide the user towards getting the thing that I want? I still think that there must be ways of doing this. If it were the case that a lot of the people were coming in and trashing the place, then I would be like, yeah, okay, well then that's obvious. Like, we need to figure out how to do it, that's going to need to also be professional cleaning fees. And like, probably that should be I don't even know why we wait to second offense. Like if somebody's like coming in and just like obviously leaving like, spilled stuff all over the ground, that's also a serious problem for us. We should be charging them on the first offense, I feel like. And so it's just like, I'm not buying into this the whole structure, I guess.
There is the fourth section of policy enforcement. And so then there's 4.1, community spaces staff will investigate reported offenses, ensure proper implementation. And then 4.2 reserves the right to modify the consequences and penalties outlined in this policy as deemed necessary, et cetera. So it's like,
so if we're leaning heavily into that, then the rest of it's just going to be a liability because people are doing, your policy specifically says that I should be okay with this.
I think maybe we can restructure this to be based on severity. Like if you've done like this category of offenses, this path, it's like trashing the place, go straight to a higher offense. So that makes sense. Did you spill like all your soda on the rugs and now the rugs are ruined? I think that's maybe different.
Well, especially as like we have plans to like invest in the community building, with like some of that like sound stuff that we've heard about recently and like those contracts coming, like it's not like we're not investing into the space. So I think that maybe there should be like a fifth section, and maybe it comes before these, like before the offenses, in which like maybe instead of like first, second, third, it's like those can be different, like severity,
small, medium, large.
Severity adjectives, that kind of a thing.
Okay. Okay.
I completely agree.
We can revise this. We can move on from. There's a good number. We might not get to all of them today, but I think we got good info from you guys on how to make revisions to this. So
cool.
Good stuff. And Olivia's on her way.
Perfect.
Maya, you can talk more about this one. I think we do get a fair amount of last minute cancellations. And so this is just trying to help give us something around, a minimum amount of time notice for no penalty, and then what to do if they do consistently cancel without notice. And the issue here is, I think it's more important than the cleaning in a way. It's like if someone's reserved it and they give too soon time to cancel, then they've deprived someone else from using the space who could have used it. So
now maybe instead of putting my UI UX hat on, I'm putting on my hacker hat. And I'm like, so I'm just not going to report the cancellation.
Just not show up.
Yeah, or I show up and I'm like, this is the event. No one came. Like, I just don't really understand what it means because we're not charging them for. Like, I appreciate it. Sounds like a serious problem. Like, I'm not like not buying into the problem.
Sure.
I'm just like, I'm not really understanding how we're going to like say that like, oh, well, you canceled 24 hours ahead of time. You should have canceled 48. So we're going to make that an offense, and then people just train people to not cancel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you were to like, we're gonna have people show up and we're gonna spot check you and we're gonna make certain that you said there's gonna be Pilates and like, I don't see any mats. That maybe we'd have to do stuff like that, but.
This most often Yeah, this was often happens for like big events that take like a prime time spot, you know, like a Friday evening. And let's say there was like a line of people for this space, the specific day, the specific time, and then we come to find out that there was never an event in the space. Then it kind of looks bad on us because we turned away all of these people for this day, and there actually wasn't anything happening for the community. So that's kind of where this problem is coming from. I totally hear what you're saying, though, Jay. So I'm open to any direction that you have, but I wanted to give a little more
Yeah,
detail.
I'm buying into the problem. Yeah, I'm buying into the problem. I am not saying that
How
this
do we
is
do
not,
it?
yeah, no, and because we're not charging for it, it does like lead to this feeling of like, oh, you know, I may as well, you know, I've got a big event that's showing up, and there's less like the SBC meme that we have, like we've got like if we need to make cancellations or modifications past a certain time, we're still on the hook for paying for it. So like that really makes us want to figure out, but because we don't want to charge for this, it's not like, well, the obvious solution is we should be having hundreds of dollars of money on the line.
Right,
We don't
right.
want to do that. So it is a very hard problem.
Yeah, I mean, technically, this goes and says the same offense. Like, if you don't do it, then you can't use the space anymore. But yeah, like you said, if they're gonna only do it once, then you know you'd have to make it banned for a year to make it really hurt.
And we would need to
extreme.
like check the meeting. Like we would need to like,
Yeah,
you know,
we'd have to.
if it's not, because it's not quite a cancellation issue, it's like a no-show issue. Like if you like, you know, schedule this space and then don't use it in the manner that you stated that you would use it for, that's an offense.
Right.
And that could maybe be that you scheduled a Pilates class and you actually were having you know, like a board meeting. Or it could be that you scheduled a Pilates class and just did not show up.
Yeah.
But if you schedule a Pilates class and you just happen to not get anyone to sign up for the class and you still show up,
that's fine. Yeah.
That's still
that should
fine.
be fine.
So that it's, but yeah, so that it makes it so that there's like, well, still makes it relatively easy, I would feel, to like reserve and steal the space if you just have to show up and say like, well, you know, no one signed up. Did I advertise for it? No, because I actually was going to cancel it. Am I even really the person who was going to run the class normally? No. I'm her friend. So, okay. Yeah. Sad thing is, it's not like I'm like in the previous one, I feel like I've got like other things that I would like, oh, let's focus on this, let's try this. And here I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, and as far as like how do we know if somebody doesn't come, if you know we're not going to be staffing the event in those ways, but we actually do know because their box code will never work. So we do get notified on that end, and also you'll see later that we're advocating for a post-reservation policy because we really are struggling with getting people to give us that data at the end of their reservation, which is really helpful for us in all of our operations. So we kind of know in two ways without physically being there. One, their lockbox code, and two is if they didn't do their survey, then we also know that too, that they weren't there or that they forgot.
But as far as this doesn't really solve all the problems I was talking about, but it's just like a minimal suggestion I might make is instead of it being a cancellation policy, being a no-show policy, and then there's like a thing if you cancel 48 hours before the thing, you will not be subject to the no-show policy. So then it's the same effect, but I think it changes the wording in a way.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. No-show policy. Because that's the real problem. It's not necessarily the cancellation, because if it was canceled, maybe we can find someone else to come in. But if you no-show and you held the space and you never even communicated to us, that's like worse. So yeah. Okay. Well, we'll figure out more about this one and maybe look at other examples and see what else could be done. I hear that we don't want to, I mean, it's free for 95% of people who ever reserve it. It's okay. We barely started.
We will never forget.
Yeah. So it's never gonna not be free for a lot of groups. So yeah.
So actually, I figure, I mean, unless is anyone here in a serious rush?
No.
Okay. So what we've been talking about is the community center policy, which wasn't actually, you couldn't have reviewed it ahead of time because it wasn't actually attached. So we've been kind of going through it. And so far, we've done 2 sections of it, and the last one we were just talking about, to continue that conversation, was a potential cancellation policy. Because we've got a lot of people who are reserving the space and then not showing up, or reserving the space and then canceling the day before. And so they're holding the space and there's no fee for it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of discussing how to maybe make this policy kind of work.
Yeah.
I noted that it was a little bit complicated because, of course, like, we're not charging for it, and if they just show up and just say, well, yeah, I had a Pilates class, but no one showed up, it's like, did they cancel, or did they show up and it was just a failure? And so, yeah, so we're trying to figure out what things to do with that. I don't know if you have any ideas on cancellation, if you have any background or experience with other kinds of spaces or stuff.
I don't, and I mean, that is hard because we are letting people use it for free. I mean, like, I feel like we could always like take down people's credit card information with it in mind that we, like, I don't know, in informing people that we have a cancellation fee, and that's like the only case that they'll be charged.
We could, I mean, yeah, we don't have a cancellation fee right now, but we could create one. And
Yeah.
that is the consequence. Yeah.
Do we think that would discourage different community groups from using our space?
I do think that would discourage some population.
Or I guess a no-show fee, like you said. not a
Yeah,
cancellation.
exactly. Because I was thinking of, like, I do have experience with like things with like a no-show fee, but since we don't have any charging for like a perfectly run event, they won't be giving us any money at any point, you know? So yeah, like your idea is fair, but I do think it will discourage some folks from like using our space for some reason. Not for some reason, for a simple reason. Yeah. But I think that is the most fair thing that we could do that would truly discourage someone from no showing. Because the only example I have is, like, you kept saying Pilates, but like I'm a member of the yoga studio, and like I pay to go and I have the unlimited, but they have a no show still, even if you're an unlimited, which means if you don't cancel within, like, if you don't cancel 3 hours before, and then you're on the hook to either show up and go to that class or get charged $15, even though you're paying the unlimited fee. But like, since we're a free system, I feel like putting in a financial thing at this kind of offense would be like a true discouragement for anyone.
Do we already take people's financial information?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, yeah.
Mhm.
I think people might be like, because in your case,
Hesitant.
you're already paying.
Yeah, I'm already deciding like, oh, I'm willing to buy this
But
thing,
people might
etc.
not wanna
Yeah,
give
no, if
their
I was like a
card info.
student, like for Dems, and they were like, you want to put your credit card down for this, I'd be like, not really.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be hard for us to manage the credit card info.
Yeah.
That we don't
There-
the whole system. I mean, it's possible just.
Right now.
Yeah, but do you feel it's more fair to the community center to like have to adopt that system and figure out a way to manage credit card information, or to deal with people not showing up?
Yeah, I mean, we will have to accept credit card information in
Okay.
the near future
Okay,
anyways.
okay.
I don't know how it works with like holding it versus like just having a way for people to pay us for
Yeah.
things. But yeah, we're gonna have to do that part anyways.
Okay.
It's like accepting money, so,
Mhm.
which we don't have right now.
So the previous discussion that we were having was a section about cleanup and offense protocol for people who were either leaving trash or were
Yeah.
spilling stuff,
Well,
not
that-
putting away chairs and tables.
That's another thing that I was curious as to, like, if you took down financial information, because I do feel like if there's significant damage to our space, people should be responsible for that incurred damage. Like, it's a disservice to the community to treat these spaces with disrespect.
Right.
So,
Right. No, we don't take down the info, and the way this is working, though, we kind of went in a different direction from how it was set up, where like we said there should be different offenses, maybe on the severity. And so if it was that severe, like you're
Yeah.
saying, we should be able to charge them like
Mhm.
$200 for the deep clean. But we don't take the info down. I
Okay.
mean, so maybe that's something we'd have to do too, or it would be like you pay us 200 or you can never use the space again. Like
Yeah.
you're banned if
You're
you
banned.
don't, you know, rectify your mistake.
Yeah.
But that's only for like the severe ones. Like
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you destroyed the you
Yeah.
know, but yeah.
I mean, I feel for trash, it's hard because even like a $15 fee is like annoying for people when it comes to trash, but also like our community, you know, I shouldn't have to be picking up other people's trash.
Mhm.
So maybe there's like, I don't know, like, what are the terms you have to agree to use a community space?
Yeah, Maya can explain a little bit about the terms. There's like a contract they sign and
Yeah, they get two forms. They get like our use agreement, and then they also get like our general rules and requirements for the space that I think that the board created before I was even hired, of just like you're responsible for cleaning up, in relevance to this and a little bit more. I was telling them earlier that when someone gets a confirmation email for their reservation, they'll get a copy of the cleanup checklist. They'll get, how the space is supposed to look when they're done. They submit checkout photos of each corner of the space, of the key back in the lockbox. It's a whole checkout process that, people go through, and they're aware of it when they sign all of these documents. Some of them are the things they sign, and some of them are in a very detailed email that we lined out. I can also put that email in the chat so you guys can see what we're sending people as well, in addition to this and explaining this.
these are like
Also,
the base. This one's on
and
the
if we
screen.
adopt policies as well, like I would have them sign all of this. Ideally, this is what we send out. This has our pre and post reservation templates. I think everyone has access to this.
Yeah, I'll bring it up on the screen.
But yeah, this is what it looks like when someone signs up. This is what they get when they're confirmed, or when we've received their request.
The next issue is parking, which we see is referenced.
Yeah.
Because are we still not able to move the
Oh, we can move the gate. We just
Okay.
can't use the lot. It's not our lot.
What?
It's IVRPD's.
Okay.
So I can email you guys this. You can see it
Mhm.
on your own.
And this is just same thing, just smaller for the community room because there's less things people need to know. A smaller space.
So yeah, we're gonna restructure this cleanup policy and bring it back based on severity. Because right now it's more general. It's like just first offense, second offense, third offense for
Okay.
anything. So we're gonna redo it to be based on like, do you not take out the trash versus did
Yeah.
you wreck the place?
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right, well, we can show you the next idea, which is on parking.
Mhm.
And again, the issues is like, this is a pretty rampant issue, and it's not the user's fault in a way, because they wouldn't know there's two government agencies that share a parking lot that can't get an agreement about it.
So bad.
But they also always are, like, I do think that the rules are pretty clear about the parking. Like Maya even attaches a map of like where not to park and where to park, and it says like please reference the map. And so we always get people parking in the IVRPD side, which is a major liability for us, because if someone trips and falls while they're parked on the IVRPD spot, could be a major problem for IVCSD. Like we would have to deal with that so we really need to disincentivize parking in the parking lot, like until we can find a solution. I mean, obviously, we hope to not have to have this policy. I'm really annoyed we have to have it, but it's really to cover our base and like us to not be sued by somebody.
So it's like nobody can park in that lot at all. Okay.
And
No,
this
so
is
there's we have designated spaces, and I can show you the map too. We have, like Jonathan said, we have 3. And in parallel with this, my interns have also given me ideas like, hey, can we paint our spots and put a logo in them so they're really clearly defined and it's not just the map that we send out. So there's a lot of other options in parallel with this, but I do think having this base level of like, don't do it, there are consequences, would be helpful, because parking is such a rarity in Isla Vista. As we know, we're doing a whole parking study. And people want to use the lot, and I don't like telling them no, but we have to in some way. So that's where this is coming from.
Yeah.
The bottom of the loop has like the semicircle, and there's like a pipe cut out of it. and that pie cut goes through the parking lot. And so there are like 2 spots that are on our side of the parking lot, and then
Okay.
all the
The
rest of the
rest of
spots are on
them.
there. And so one thing that has come up before was the idea of having a second gate that would allow us to say you can't go into their lot, but you can still come into, because the handicap spot's kind of important.
Yeah,
And so
Yeah.
is that something that has been like,
we have to work it out.
we're
with
still,
them.
yeah, there's been no progress on that,
Yeah.
not that I really expect it.
And we are, I am working on the boom gate issue, but that's like more of an issue with getting the company to sell us the boom gate, which for some reason has been a challenge, and then getting the county to allow us to install it.
Okay.
But like, an arm,
Oh.
that's, I guess, the term for what I learned, but,
If weirdly, I would have thought that the one that we have would be a boom gate.
Yeah,
somehow,
no,
because
that's-
it's-
so we're trying to get that for the main entrance, but it would help a little bit here, because, you give someone a code and you would know they used their code to get in, and like, did you let everyone in or not? Like, someone could say, oh, it's the person before me left it open. So the boom gate will help, and also we're gonna be using the parking lot for the MTD, microtransit, so they're gonna be parking in one of the spots now.
Okay.
So the boom gate will do a lot, but yeah, we do need that still gate between the 2 sides, yeah.
I mean, I think signage is a great idea.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, I don't know, so obviously like getting an email with all that information is wonderful, but I feel like sometimes like people also need reminders. And so is there something, because like I know that like there's not a person that's a point of contact when people are coming to these events always. But like, could we leave extra information for them? Like once they come into the community center, like here's your packet of stuff. that
So
you're,
these
like,
are all
allowed-
Yeah, these are all posted physically in the space. There's like an information hub where I've got everything they get over email is always physically in the space too, just in case someone's not very tech savvy. And we also are working on getting this in Spanish as well. So we'll have both English and Spanish references on site.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is what we send people on parking. It's, yeah.
And also
And it's-
videos. I should add, like we just did one for the lockbox and we're doing one for, questions in the space, but we have a QR code now where if someone scans a QR code when they're outside trying to figure out the lockbox, it'll have a video tutorial of one of my interns walking them through the process. So there is some sort of physical help on site, even if we're not there. So just FYI. Additional.
That's true. I thought that the boundary was ever so slightly more to the upper left than it is, where that is brutal. Now, would it would require a lot of approval to just paint a line?
Maybe not. Maybe if we just paint on our side.
Like a dotted line on our, like that's slightly on our side, so it's on
Don't
our
go past the
property.
line.
That would actually say that like, instead people would know that like the parking on this side of the dotted line is okay, and parking on that side is not.
We could maybe do that.
Or even just painting the spots that are ours. That's like you can only park in the
Oh,
painted
that's
spots.
a very interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this.
I think that would help.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think those are good ideas for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're doing. That's what happens at UCSB. It'll say like faculty, staff only, faculty only, etc. It'll be like IVCSD only, IVRPD only.
All right, so the policy we've got here has that the violation is utilizing incorrect or unauthorized parking spots in the IVCC's parking facilities will be considered an offense. Now, the question that I would have with respect to reading the policy is whether that means the person who reserved the space is the offender of the policy, or the person who owns the car / drove the car is the offender of the
I
policy.
would say it's the person who reserved is responsible for managing their
I
own
agree.
people.
I think that needs to be clarified, because
Okay.
when it says utilizing incorrect or unauthorized parking spots, I would think it would be the driver of the car as
Yeah,
opposed to
that
the.
makes sense. Cool. Okay, that's all. Good thoughts. We can make revisions. Anything else? You want me to print you a copy, Olivia?
That's okay. I'm following along pretty well. Thank you, though.
Community members who witness parking violations during the Isle Vista Community Center's parking facilities should promptly snitch to the county's management. It's a policy. What if somebody doesn't follow that policy?
We have eyes everywhere. I'm kidding, of course. If anyone else has any thoughts, I'm happy to make these revisions and bring it back. So I think these are really good points.
Yeah, I just feel like this is kind of a hard policy to move forward with because like I want to see all this happen and like I don't want to have to take any more like drastic steps towards punishing people until like we're like, okay, does it work or not? Right. So like yeah, painting the spots
Like,
will be
let's try
awesome.
that.
And then we can see how does painting the spots work? Are people respecting that? And then move forward with like
Okay.
another form of discouragement.
I'm very much compatible with that thought process.
Yeah.
Next one is similar kind of thought process that have been going on is one of our policies is to have a post reservation form where people fill it and like say what happened, but people aren't doing it.
I didn't do that.
Mhm.
For
Jay
reference,
didn't do
to talk about how big of a problem this is, okay? So as you know, and we've had like 1,400 something events since the opening of the community center. And even repeating people are supposed to be filling this out every time. It's very quick. It takes, just so everyone knows, it takes like less than 5 minutes. And a lot of it is just the checkout process, like you would for an Airbnb, a couple of things that you need to do. And I think in this past January through June, like I said, we had 700 something events, and I think only 34 people filled it out. And I'm implementing things so that after every single event, I have someone who's going to check. It's a new step on the project manager's plate, is just making sure everyone who does it fills it out. But we also just want to motivate people to be aware of it and to want to. As you saw in our like pre-reservation thing, it's very, very clear on what the checkout process is. I just recently made it red as well to help draw attention to please reading the whole thing. But that's what we're facing, and it's really helpful to be able to collect data. We want to hear what people think of the space and how we can make it better. And also this helps us collect how many people are coming to these events so that we can start making priorities and really seeing the space when we're there and when we're not. So
Or applying for grants or anything like that.
Trying to figure out why the menu kept re-popping up. I was like, oh, it must be the notification for the chat messages. That's not it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. So again, this is, we can try more carrots, but this is a type of stick that you could have.
So you said that the post-reservation form includes parts of the checklist and is part of the like process of making certain that they use the space correctly?
basically it has like a reminder. Let me pull it up.
It has a reminder. There's an aspect essentially of the, and this by the way is not the reason why I didn't fill it out, but this is a reason, there's a different reason why I didn't fill it out, which is, I'll get to in a second. But I can imagine the experience being that like, oh, it's just a survey, right? Like, and particularly if we're looking for feedback, relevant information, I mean, how often do you actually do the survey when they attach on the receipt when you go to Chipotle or whatever, you call customer service, unless I've occasionally done it when the person was like so above and beyond. I wanted to make certain like I didn't need to tell their manager to like, do not get rid of this person. But like otherwise I don't follow up on it. They'll offer me like a $25 gift card and I'll sometimes not like actually do this survey.
I completely agree. I will say we just recently like bolded this in our email as well, but it includes like reference photos for people to know where to put things back, a place to submit their checkout photos, which we do require, and a place to submit an event count, so they know exactly what is going to be on the survey, and it is very clear that it's required for the reservation as well.
Do the majority of the folks who don't do this, are they doing 0%, or are they doing like 25% of the post reservation or 75% and not one of them? Okay, got it.
0%.
Do we call it a post reservation form?
Yes, we do.
What if we just called it like a checkout form? Like I feel like naming like I don't know, like changing the name would motivate people. Like this is something mandatory, not something optional.
I was thinking something similar, but I did not of the name. I love the name checkout. That's great.
We can revise it. I'm just trying to get us through all of these, but I think these are all good thoughts, and we'll make all these revisions. Like Olivia, you didn't hear me say like these are all just ideas.
Okay.
And we just compiled like a whole document of brainstorm ideas. So nothing
like
to
it.
approve today, yeah. All right, next one is, okay, so here's an issue. We actually had in our policy that you're not allowed to charge for your events at our space, but a couple people did, and they didn't tell us they were going to. So it's like, do we wanna legalize it and regulate, or do we wanna continue to not allow it? So people, Maya, you can describe the situations when people ended up charging for an event they hosted at the space.
Right. So it's happened multiple times. And I've been trying to kind of track when I find out that it happens, where the money is going, because I think that's kind of important when we are thinking about a policy. And I'm hearing things like, for example, can I name orgs or should I not name orgs? Is that bad,
I
Jonathan?
mean, it's probably.
I was about to name my own org actually for the purposes of this.
Well, let's just say, yeah. For example, the Fashion Club had a really great event at our spaces, but they didn't tell me that they were going to charge $25 a ticket, and they did. And then when I followed up with them, kind of asking, "Oh, where did all this money go? We're not supposed to be charging for events, but we're thinking about a policy. If you can just have a little transparency with me," I never heard anything back. So there's things like that where I just don't know where the money is going, and that they're charging the community members, which I think can be an issue. And then when it's unregulated. And then there's also things like, for example, the theater group, they wanted to charge for admission, something really low just to cover their production costs. And sometimes I have the funds to sponsor their shows so that I can help them bring this to the community for free. But with more events, I don't always have the funding to do that for everybody. And so I want to make something that is fair. If people are charging for an event, but it's only going for their production costs, I think maybe they should be allowed to do that. But if they're charging for an event for a profit for themselves or for the organization and it's not a fundraising event, then maybe we should start making some sort of line on when it's okay and when it's not. So that's where this arose, per se.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. Are they allowed to accept donations or just no money at all?
I think they can accept it. I don't think they have a rule.
Yeah, there's nothing against donations. Like I have a yoga event. She wanted to charge $5 to $10 a person, and we said that wasn't okay, but she wants to suggest donations, then she can. That's not really our jurisdiction at that point. As far as what we have for a policy right now. So I'm open to thoughts on it.
For the SBCCSDA meeting, for what it's worth, and I did not, at the time we did this meeting, in fact, I don't even think I understood we wasn't supposed to do this until just now. So we charge $40 for the dinner because that's our food cost. And then, but if you can still show up to the meeting and not eat the dinner. And so that's where our money went, is to pay for the food that was at the event.
This is what our current policy says. It's very not nuanced. So that's what, that's what a lot of Maya did, is kind of bring nuance to our current policies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the idea of the community center and having an event there is not that you want to have your exclusive group only attend your event. You select the community center because you're hoping that more people will hear about your club or whatever your group is. And so having a cost to attend the event goes counterintuitive to that philosophy. So it's then there's the fundraiser idea, which I can see being a very nice charge situation. But if it's I am the president of the surf club and I want to have a movie, then I can see where there could be a cost, but also I'm having it at the community center because I want more people to come than are already in my clique or associated group or whatever. So to me, it seems like charging folks would go against the whole idea of community spaces, because somebody is reserving that space, hoping to get more people involved. Usually, there's already so many private spaces in Isla Vista.
Are there? See, that's my memory of the original discussions. I say original. That is ridiculous because I only got involved in this in 2014, and they've been talking about this building for at least 10 years before that. This specific building. So, but the original discussions in relation to the community services district having a community center, people were always talking about quinceañera as the number one use case. I don't feel like that's not something where you reserve the space for quinceañera and you're just community members show up. Random people.
But they're also, but that's also they're probably not charging anyone who attends either. But I feel like folks should be able to have things private, but then charging like it being cost prohibitive is like not a value I support as a director, that like you can come if you have money to come, but if you don't have money, then you definitely can't come. Or if somebody buys your, like, that's something I don't really philosophically agree with, like something that is solely financially exclusive versus it could be exclusive for other reasons. I feel like usually the other reasons are going to be more fair and equitable versus like only financial reasons feels like supremely not equitable. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine a good reason why I would like community center use and excluding someone for $5 or $10 or $25.
A lot of this too is to offset some of the costs of the people putting on the event for the community. Like we as a district can offset some of their costs, but I mean, with the amount of requests I have been receiving, it's, to be transparent, almost virtually impossible for us to offset everybody's cost. And I have some, there's more policies below that kind of talks about like how do we prioritize funding for who and when. But this is just so that we can have some sort of regulation on what people are charging for, if they're charging for anything. If you want to keep the policy as nobody charges ever, I obviously I support that too. I understand the philosophical background. So
Because I have a use case that I personally did in violation of policy, I will ask, according to covering production costs associated with organizing the event, would food be considered part of that?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Like I'm imagining like a really cool event would be like there's something happening and somebody, like we had that ice cream truck during the step thing, and maybe somebody's like independent community members like wants to have an ice cream truck there, and it's gonna be free for everyone, or $5 means like everyone gets to have one ice cream or something like that. That's totally great. But like just to attend only for it to be like, I don't know, that feels off. But like to make the event happen, I want to allow like cool things to happen here.
I agree. And I actually, at the end of this policy, I have an authorization and approval so that if somebody wants to charge for their event, then they need to get our approval first. I think here I have for the board approval. If we don't want to bring every single thing to the board, I understand we could talk about it, but I was thinking like in order to, one, for us to have a grasp on just how many people are going to charge, like this would be good for us to get applications. And two, we can really assess like, is this something that we think is equitable to charge for, or is this unfair to our community?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Bringing it to the board if.
I don't know if it has to go to the board
But
every
having
single
a
time, but I
process.
think that you should have to submit why,
Why?
like a reason
Oh, yeah.
you're charging, where, and then like what Maya's saying, like where the money is going. And then like, like I trust our staff to fairly evaluate what's equitable
Yeah.
too. It doesn't have to come to the board, but
Yes, I agree with that fully.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely an issue we didn't anticipate, so it's a good one to be looking at again. All right, moving on to the next one, alcohol.
I can
It's-
preface this. It's a big one.
it's-
Because we don't have any policy. I mean, I think we have a small one in the sense if we have alcohol, I think legally it needs to be in a confined area. But I don't think
Yeah,
we
that's the general rule.
I don't think we have anything specific, and there's been instances where I've caught people afterwards by going into the space and seeing like White Claw clans, Vitali caps in the center. Even after we have people do safety guidelines and have an alcohol safety plan, I had an org leave a total mess, and it was very obvious they were drinking with no regulation. And then I also had an incident where it was very conspicuously titled, I think it was an alumni event that a group was putting on, and they called it like grapes and cheese. I should have caught on to it, that it was wine, but I didn't. And I had someone walk by and say they saw a bunch of people with wine bags in our community room, and I'm like, how am I supposed to know this? So I think having some sort of policy, we already have a conversation with people when we think that there's any chance of like alcohol, for example, senior appreciation sometimes, or like a a social, we already have these conversations, like, can you provide us an alcohol safety plan? How are you going to prevent underage drinking? And that's in here, but it's also just like going that extra step of having a little bit more detail to what we're requiring, and just so people are aware, like, if you want alcohol, you need to have someone with a license distributing it. You need to be following these very strict guidelines so that we can make sure everyone's safe.
And just a quick additional context is we almost got banned from allowing alcohol by the county.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
what I was
had
gonna ask about that.
we had to fight really hard to be able to have alcohol allowed at the community center, but we then never implemented that. And it is a dicey thing to implement, or difficult thing to implement.
So technically, we do have approval to have alcohol at community center
From the
events.
county, I mean, it's not in our
We
contract.
do not, we are not
We're
prohibited
yeah.
from having alcohol here.
Okay, it's
But
not.
other organizations such as ABC might care very deeply about
Yeah, yeah,
exactly how and when we have alcohol.
Got it. So we are not prohibited from stopping other people from doing.
Yeah,
Or-
right now it's not allowed or not allowed. I mean, there's no
Got it,
rule at
got
all
it,
right now.
got it.
So yeah, the licensed bartender is a major thing in the designated area, like, beer garden
Yeah.
concept essentially. So it has to
Exactly.
happen here. Yeah. And we've had a couple, actual requests. I mean, I think there was the Healing Justice wanted to do like a brunch event with alcohol. There's been the birthday parties, like kids' birthday parties. Yeah.
Wedding request where they also requested alcohol,
Weddings,
and also
yeah.
the comedy as well. They wanted to know about alcohol too. So
So
Now
we
it's
want to
down
do
a
area
little
of the
bit.
community center. Oh my god, that's amazing.
It's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Can you scroll down to where it was the licensed,
Yeah.
there.
And so basically this is saying that if you want to have alcohol at your event, you need to submit a request to us with all of this information ready so that you can meet with me, we could talk about it, go over it, and make sure everything goes okay.
So there's another, my understanding that I only figured out while quickly Google searching here, so it didn't like walk in with this understanding, and maybe I'm wrong. But is that we're not even like if you have a caterer, you have to have like a licensed bartender or like a licensed caterer in order to do this. But you still can't give away alcohol. Like you actually have to charge for it. Regardless of the location of the party, it's illegal for a caterer to give away free alcohol to guests or the hosts. Or like another one saying that giving away alcohol for free during public events is prohibited. A public event is one that has no set guest list and is free for anyone to enter. You will need to sell the alcohol to guests if you want to keep the event open to the public.
Can you send us the code
What
for
if
that
you-
so we can reference it in our policy?
What if you sold like, oh, you get $5, you pay $5 and then you get unlimited?
I guess that
That's
would
added
be
onto your
allowed.
ticket.
That sounds like it'll be allowed.
Yeah.
But then this would be up to our user account from that too. So it's like, yeah.
Well, then I want to give away alcohol will need to be one of the reasons why you're allowed to charge me.
Yeah.
I have an unlimited drinking plan.
This is very important to my community events.
Okay, well, Jay, if you can send us that, that would be nice. So
Mhm.
we would cite it. Anything else on alcohol? Yeah, it's obviously a family space too, so we want to be able to balance, families and people legitimately using alcohol at their events.
I mean, yeah, if I was hosting a quinceañera for a daughter in the future, I would definitely have alcohol at my daughter's
Yeah,
quinceañera.
exactly.
As the example that Jay referenced, that was referenced a lot historically.
Well, we've had a few kids' birthday parties, like
Okay.
local kids in IV.
That's
have their birthday parties.
So cool.
That's adorable, yeah.
Yeah. So let's go on to the next one, which again, it's an issue that's emerging that we just need a policy on, and lots of people do this differently, but it's funding events. So, we have some events that we always have decided we're gonna fund, whether it's like a dance class or like a quarterly, we used to do like the static dance thing once a quarter. So we had things like in our plan to fund, and Maya has like in the budget 47,000 for community events and most of it is broken out. Like the vast majority is for things already planned to happen, but there's some of it that's general. And we want to make sure we have a criteria or method to use when we determine which events we give subsidy to help happen. And everyone does it differently. Like here, we're saying it could be a staff level thing, but also IVRPD takes it to their board to sponsor events, and it's a board vote after staff review. So there's different ways to do it. Here we said, things that are eligible, that align with our goals, align with things we're trying to do. These are all language pulled from our board goals. All this language of what's eligible.
Is this saying we would fund them in part or whole?
It's in part, not, I mean, it depends, it can be a $200 event, like whole.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere in here that has the like amount or?
Not
No, I
necessarily.
did keep it pretty broad. If you want to add amounts, I'm more than happy to. But I will say I get a really big scale. I have some people that will request like anywhere between like you said, $200 for maybe catering for a small group to like, $1,300 for like one of the big events that we, for example, we partnered with BSU and the Pride event last spring. And both of those we didn't pay for the whole event, but we were still putting in a really good amount to help fund and make them happen. So, and I would say that those would be based on the 3 point, whatever goal, like 1.14. So 1.14.
The amount to me feels kind of important because I can imagine somebody coming and being like, well, I want, $5,000 for my event. And it's like, why, Wayne, that you gave her, $1,000 for her event, why would you give me $5,000 for my event? And it's like trying to argue with them about like, well, her event, aligned better with our board goals versus the thing. Like, we're willing to I value your event. Like, I'm willing to give you $500 worth for your event. Like, it starts to feel like a weird, like budgetary problem that's going to end up occurring with a bunch of arguments over it.
I mean, you could make the max like the 1,500. That's already like the
discretionary spending on staff.
Yeah.
That feels like a good pattern to me to make discretionary spending on the various things equivalent.
But I know one thing I think we've talked about is raising that discretionary spending limit because it's been a hindrance. So you could have maybe a separate discretionary spending limit for this versus the general district stuff. But it is something we've already done. It's like
you've already talked me out of that wonderful pattern.
Yeah, and I only have so much funding available for these types of things too. Like I have a little bit set aside each quarter for things, and then I think a total of like 1,000 for like nightlife incentives. So I prioritize people that want to do safe programming at night that I've been allowing that funding to be circulated for, so stuff like that.
For what it's worth, if you had an infinite amount of funding, I certainly wouldn't care because then we apply for stuff.
Yeah.
Essentially, when I think about the concern here, it's partly to protect staff from the argument that ends up occurring when staff end up making decisions that this community member gets a resource and this community member does not. And it's like, that sounds like the kind of thing where I don't really want somebody being like, well, Maya gave me, $500 for this thing, but they gave, Maya specifically gave this person $2,000 for their event. Why is Maya directing resources in this way? And that's, I think, part of where if you when you look at IVRPD, you punt it to the board because at the end of the day, it's like, it's like the board's job to be sitting around making decisions like that. So,
I mean, we can bring to the board on a regular basis, like a list of events we've recommended to fund, and then they can just be on your consent agenda and you can approve it. Or if you have an issue with it, you can pull it.
The only thing, as somebody who would with Kim ran a bunch of events that were going to Kim, so we're going to the Parks District constantly asking. The only thing that was really complicated about the Parks District process was that they only meet once a month. And that means that your meeting has to effectively be like you said, your budget for the thing that you're doing and all you're planning for it has to effectively be a month and a half earlier than that to make certain that you coordinated enough with staff such that they can get it on the agenda for the next meeting so that they can then have it for the thing. And because our meetings are twice as often as that, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, good point.
We could also do like a scale, right? Maybe like over a certain amount, we can try to get it up because normally like the bigger events that are spending like $1,000 plus, we know a good amount of time in advance that we could get that scheduled and talk it through. versus, you know, maybe an event wants catering, they might not get paid that much notice. So it could be something that's scaled based on quantity too, if you wanted to do something like that.
I like that idea. Like
Me
if we're only
too.
supporting $100, like we don't need to bring that to the board, but
Yeah.
if it's like over a certain amount, like over 500,
Yeah,
It
I was
goes
thinking
over.
of that limit too, like
Yeah.
$500 limit.
yeah,
I agree.
you can actually do a lot with $500 for an event too. If you're
Mhm.
creative, 500 is way more than enough depending on what you're doing. So. All right, and then yeah, we'll make revisions based on this, but we'll add something here where decision making, like yeah, we'll do a bifurcate. Some go to the board, some are staff review.
Also, this occurred to me, story with the Parks District, not lost right. It's like the commentary on the Parks District's process is a lot of times the reason why they sponsored an event wasn't even to pay for event like costs. It was to pay for their own fees to use the park to do the thing. So they weren't even like,
waiving the fees.
yeah, there was like their sponsorship was a fee waivership. And so because we don't have fees, we're also, there's this different kinds of things I guess we're doing this. So.
Well, there's sometimes like waives the insurance requirements and things like that too,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
For us, we don't really have the insurance.
Yeah.
We've like pre-waived them for almost everybody. So
I'm thinking about like some situation in which somebody has an event planned, they ask for $450 to fund some kind of licensed bartender or something like that, and then our district's money is then putting alcohol into the community and something weird like
I
that.
think you can't use public money for alcohol.
Okay, it's
That's
like
a
somewhere
separate
else
law,
it
but
exists.
We
that
should add it.
I
We
think
should
that
add it.
maybe we
Yeah.
should list that for I Love Listens, so like they're like, oh, drats, and we could be like, yeah, this is actually a state code. We don't really
Right,
have authority
right.
over this.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's a state code.
Okay,
Yeah. ECSB has the same rule.
that's kind of yeah. I feel like I've encountered that with UCSB.
All right. Well, that's the
For anyone showing up to this month's SBCCSD meeting, there will be a full cash bar where you can bring money and pay for alcohol if you'd like, but none of the money will come from any of the organizations.
So here's the next one, and again, this is not, it's just an idea, but as we come up with more specialized things to offer at the community center, they do get expensive to do, and so everyone else charges a little bit for their classes, like Galeta Community Center and Santa Barbara Rec and Parks. They have nominal fees for using their specialized workshops and programs. Ours are all free currently, and I think we would want to keep 75% free, but if we got to a level where we have like a really specialized class, it might make sense to have some cost recovery. But again, it's just an idea, and this is like the way we're starting to think about if we wanted to have some fees for the classes and workshops that we have that, like
And
I said, not available elsewhere, things like that.
Yeah, and just for a little bit of background, the reason why I even started thinking about this was because all of our regular programming, which we have, and it's amazing, it is taking a good chunk of my funding, and I think that I have a great amount of funding, but I want to make sure that it's doing the most for our community. So I still want money for the, bigger programming that we do in addition to the regular weekly stuff that we put on. So my idea is to keep the things that we already have as free. I think that they should stay free, they should stay accessible, and that we should always have something free in the community center for people to come to, whether or not they want to pay. So that's like, our dance classes, our yoga class, our mothers group. I think all of those things should remain free because they already have their communities and they're doing really well. This is talking about if we want to add, like Jonathan said, a more specialized class. For example, I'm looking into permaculture workshops and comedy workshops, both of which are around $300 per session to work with someone who's going to develop this curriculum and put on these like really great, almost like small courses that people can take. And I'm really trying to focus on the things that we're offering are things that would be way too expensive somewhere else. I think soaps was also brought up too. Something that's way too expensive somewhere else that we can bring for a very accessible and inclusive price for our community specifically. And also looking at what things people want, right? So we could try a class for free if it's really popular, maybe then letting people know that it might be something we charge for in the future. So this is really just looking at one, if we charge for something, it's going to be specialized and rare. Two, it's going to be significantly cheaper than anywhere else, you know, like $10 a class. Maybe if they sign up for a pack, it's like $5, you know, very, very cheap. And everything that we would offer, that we would charge, we would need to do a cost comparison. We could also potentially add in a sliding scale. I put this italicized community sponsorship. If we want to look for other people to help sponsor specific events, we could do that as well. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Got a fair selection process, making sure we're not duplicating something that already is happening, how we break down free fees, being really transparent. If something's free this quarter and it's going to be cost money the next quarter, telling people that upfront, things like that. So I want to emphasize that while I do want to always have everything free, if we do want to offer more things at the center that are more specialized and can be more expensive that our community would benefit from, sadly, eventually we're going to have to charge something unless we can pull revenue from another source that I'm open to. But this was my idea.
Any thoughts?
This makes sense to me, especially when we're talking about like, you know, things that are super cool to learn about, but like, you know, if we ever like something on like how to do your taxes, obviously we're not going to charge for that, but like making soap, okay, like $10 to learn how to make soap is, I feel like, reasonable.
Yeah, I support the direction as also because I feel like some future Isla Vista in which there are more regular events that regularly have a cost because they're just really useful for the health of the community. Like I'm imagining some kind of like cooking class or something like that, where like somebody hosting the event is pre-buying the ingredients, but the users are like putting up money up front to get that stuff. And then it's like,
Are we collecting the money in this?
In this scenario, eventually, yeah. It's not an immediate thing, but yeah, we would be making that.
Because in one model, we can think of, you know, we're covering the cost for the instructor, and then the money that, you know, community members would potentially pay would help us offset the cost. So maybe we're still covering a small portion of the teacher because it is specialized and it is expensive to have, but this would offset our costs so that we can offer more. In another model, we let the teachers know upfront that they are in charge of working directly with their students, and whatever profit they get from that is with them. So it's just whether or not if we want to be a mediator to like subsidize costs, or if we want to like fully be hands off and let that interaction happen without us. This is doing the subsidized model in this policy, but I'm open to your thoughts.
Are you anticipating, it could be very well be that the answer is, I'm interested in all of these things. So like, are you anticipating scenarios where people are paying well in advance, or where people are like showing up and paying an entrance?
I think we would want to motivate like class packs. I've seen this be really successful with most businesses that offer a drop-in, right? The drop-in class is the most expensive thing. I know that we were referencing a yoga studio earlier. I know that realm, so I can use that as an example, right? So $25 to drop into one class, or $10 a class for 10 classes, right? You get a deal if you sign up for more. The programs I'm looking at right now are like a 6-week course on, you know, comedy workshop. You can do a drop-in class for a higher amount, or you can buy the whole course for like $50, you know? So I think it's motivating people to sign up for the whole thing to motivate attendance, but letting people drop in and just check out one class if they like what they're learning that week. Because I do plan to post the curriculum for these things ahead of time for people to know what they'll be learning that
I think this is the last one. So we can take it from here, and yeah.
Oh, that was the last one.
This is the last one. So yeah, thank you, Maya, for organizing all this. And yeah, there's, you know, a lot to learn when you're running a community center that we didn't know when we first passed these in October 2021, our original policies.
Well, for formality's sake, I should have been doing this probably throughout the course of this discussion, but I also don't think we actually have any. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Any of the numerous policy components that we discussed in relation to the community center park. No
Shocker.
public. Is there any other things that any of us board members or one of us see us cover quickly? Hearing nothing, moving on to agenda item 3.2, the community flyer policy. The community will review the proposed community flyer policy, give direction to staff, and or recommend the policy to the board.
All right, so this policy there's a couple driving forces behind it. So one is people do post their flyers or ask to post their flyers on the community center itself. So that's a place where flyers get posted. But also one thing that Jenna, and so Jenna's also on the call, she'll be able to help talk about this one. But one thing that Jenna and Sydney have been working with county to do is to, well, I'll share my screen, sorry. Is to install a community bulletin board on the corner where the solar lot is, you know, that empty space where the bench used to be.
Is the bulletin board that is mentioned in this policy that bulletin board?
It will be.
Okay,
Yeah.
not the bulletin board that we're not talking about the tiny little one that's for the.
That one will get, you know, all our bulletin boards will be like the front of the community center, our bulletin board. We have one in the community room, or there should be one in the community room, there used to be. And then this one we would hopefully get. So it is like anticipating something happening, but also people already are posting flyers in our spaces. So we do need to regulate that in some way because there's freedom of speech issues. And so we talked a little bit with our legal team about the freedom of speech issues and how do we balance those versus like our interests of not wanting, you know, violent and hateful speech posted in our boards. So that's where we got to with this policy. It's like I'll go over it really quick and like some of the nuance, but that's the goal here. Is like we want to be able to have a space for people to share information. Obviously, UCSB is like lots of places where you can post things, and it's a pretty useful way. We do already go to the businesses. We post our things at their bulletin boards, but this would be, you know, our spaces and possibly like a designated bulletin board, but also like the current spots we have. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think my personal belief, fairly, and maybe, and might rapidly be convinced otherwise, would be that the little tiny bulletin board that's right outside our office be used for our notices, because of our like required public notices for our meetings and everything. It's not that much space. We do sometimes need to put a bunch of agenda items there, and otherwise I'm running thought processes of like who gets to use that tiny little one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's gonna be a bunch of arguments because like at least if there's a big bulletin board that's over there, it's a big bulletin board
Easy.
space.
Yeah, no.
It's like, yeah, but who gets to have the ones, you know, right
here? No, I agree. It used to have like a space for nonprofits at one point in the past, but yeah, we have run out of space for our stuff. So I like, you know, it could be excluded from there. So yeah, here's what we do not permit: political stuff, personal opinions, products for sale, people fundraising, or anything bigger than 8.5 by 11. Go ahead.
Well, so the question I have on this
Yeah.
is that let's say that somebody has an event that is we're gonna watch a movie, and that movie is a movie that is considered to be somewhere along the political axis, like, you know. Is that something that where you're not allowed to post a movie because inherently by posting that movie, you are posting about the like.
It's tough. I mean, technically that should be okay, right? Like even if it's content that some people don't agree with or people agree a lot with, we can't regulate on viewpoint.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to determine whether it falls along this idea of like, is it a notice relating to personal philosophy?
Okay, you guys have seen the anti-Munger Hall flyers all over IV.
Yeah.
That's what this would, you know, something like that. I was like, I just want to spread my own.
If somebody made a documentary film about Munger Hall,
I'm sure
that was clearly super anti-Munger Hall, and then wanted to have a movie showing of that, would that be considered a political debate?
I think at that point, if it's an actual event, they've reserved the community center, it's happening, they're showing the movie, I think that then we can't regulate. It's not you could say it's their personal opinion, but it's promoting the event. It's not like a flyer that says, here's what I think about X issue. You know, it's not like a flyer saying vote for X, or a flyer that says call the board of supervisors and do this and tell them this. So that's what we were trying to get at. Like, because we really cannot regulate. It's unfortunate or fortunate, however you want to see it. You can't regulate viewpoints. So someone could you know, there was an event that was horrible in 2016, I think, called like Feminism is Cancer. UCSB had on campus, and they couldn't ban that event because it had to happen. And
It just felt like the reason why you had that little thing in there was to try to say that, like, yeah, but if it, you know, left, right, whatever, let's just not do this.
yeah.
But then it's like, oh, but it's an event. And so I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially, maybe we can I can talk with our legal team more about it. It's like, let's say if it's an event to meet someone like running for Congress, that wouldn't be allowed because it's political campaigns. You can, so that's maybe an easy one. But if it was, I think the distinction here is like, am I using this as like Facebook essentially? Like, am I just posting a rant that I want to communicate and to use the community bulletin board? That's not what it's for. If I'm having an event and it's a legitimate thing, I've reserved the community center, I've gone through all those steps to do that, then I guess we really can't.
What if my event is a community meeting in order to discuss the thing that I don't want to have?
I would assume that then that is fine,
Okay.
technically, right? Like,
I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to poke at the.
I know,
parts of
and I'm
this
trying to make sure like I
understanding.
answer correctly. I'm like, yeah, I think that works. Yeah, so it's tough. It's a tough situation. It's like, it's a great service to the community, but it comes with like great responsibility of like, you know, we have to. Okay, so this is just a simple process for having things, you know, we're saying, should we have a fee for this? Should it be so small that it's, you know, you can skin in the game essentially, or does it not matter? We've also been talking, it's not reflected in here, so you can have a small fee for everybody, but if you wanted to have like specific ad space on this, you could like sell that as opposed to like a community notice, like, oh, I want to put my flyer up for $5, but you know, at UCSB they have the newspaper stands, they have those big
have
ads.
ads on them, yeah.
This bulletin board, and Jenna, how many panels do we have available on this? Is it 6 or 6 sides?
But a couple of the sides will be a little bit visible from the street. Maybe some discuss later, bringing that up. There are signs, but there are not all in terms of view from the street.
Hey Jenna, just let you know, I don't think your connection's too good. We're not hearing much from what you're saying. But I think I heard it was 6 sides, but some aren't visible easily from the street.
I also.
Yeah. So that's another thought process we've been having is like, do we charge a small fee for just everybody and it's all just like little flyers, like 8.5 by 11, and then we are saying like everything should be uniform size, or should we have a more ad revenue section where we're focused on like generating money, and then the other section is more, you know.
Do we have a policy on who can advertise at the community center?
Not like on who, no. I mean,
Okay.
that's something we can say, who.
Yeah.
You could say Iowa Vista community organizations. I don't know if like we can say that.
Okay.
It's a
Oh,
legal
okay.
question, but we could maybe say,
Okay.
for like the community center, we say people who get it for free
Mhm.
are organizations based in Iowa Vista or people who live in IV.
Okay.
So we have something like, we kind of have some precedent for giving a benefit to
Yeah.
residents over others, but
I've got a thing that I'm running downtown. Am I allowed to post on this community?
technically nothing here says you can't, but we can change it to say only things happening here.
It feels to me like we might want to do something like that, but I'm not sure. Maybe we don't. But it's. I'm just thinking about the idea of like, there are people who they're running a thing and they just go everywhere and it's like, where's all the places I can advertise this?
Yeah,
You end up
exactly.
with this, like, it feels almost like spam here, because in their perspective, they're just, if I can even one person from IV, and they did work stapling this thing here, so.
Yeah. We can limit it to events happening like at UCSB or NIV. Yeah.
Next thing, I'm not, this might be considered a product for sale, but I don't think it's a product for sale. Somebody has like like, I'm a guitar tutor, and there's a stereotypical thing where there's like a little tear off.
Yeah.
That's something that you're intending to support or not?
Yeah, I mean, this is products for sale, so that's like a service for sale. It's
Yeah, that's
technically different.
It is technically different.
that's up to us. Like, do we want to have the services for sale allowed there or not? I mean, they already have a lot of places though, too. Like, those are all over Starbucks and, Kage has them.
But part of the reason why they are all over everywhere is because, again, if they just get one sale from that
Then
might be
it might
recurring
be
revenue.
worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can do a bifurcation, you can charge for some things and you can charge for other things. If like you are wanting to put an ad for a service you provide to the community, you can pay us $5. If you're just putting a movie showing at the community center, that's free, so. We're doing uniform size, which might be annoying for people, but really helps us.
Yeah.
It's a grid, Oh, sorry, Jenna couldn't get back into Zoom, but yeah, she confirmed what we translated from her was correct.
There's a bullet that says it must include the events, time, date, location, and contact information. It kind of implies that they're all supposed to be events, but is it?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we were thinking of this as mainly events, but it doesn't have to be that.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to think of all the things that I tend to see on one of these billboards.
Yeah.
to
Well,
see
do
what
you
the-
guys think
Same
it
thing
should
for
just
like
be
if it's
events?
removed a week later, like if somebody's putting up services for sale, you probably want to leave it longer than a week.
I guess you could resubmit it
That's
if you
true.
really
Yeah.
wanted to, yeah.
It would.
But they would, yeah.
And maybe not if we charge the fee, like, even with a $5 fee, it might be the case that the guitar tutor may think twice.
Mhm.
It could be this week.
Any other thoughts?
I mean, I would feel fine charging fees for like services provided. But I don't think we should charge them for any like community events happening at the community center for sure. Or like even general events in Isla Vista.
Quick, that's good. I mean, that's a good direction. Like, we want to prioritize events, but services can come onto if you pay.
Yeah.
Well, because our community calendar, like that's based on events that happen in our spaces. And so that's basically like a free thing. And then they usually end up getting they get like social media advertising from us basically once they are an approved event.
Mm-hmm.
Do we?
Yeah, we'll put out like this week's event.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay.
say here's what's preserved, and they're on the community calendar, which anyone goes on our website.
I was just thinking that many people are actually going to the little calendar space on the government website in order to try to figure out.
I check that thing all the time.
That page actually has pretty good traffic, and we're trying to make it like
Okay,
the
okay,
definitive
okay,
place.
all right, cool.
Yeah.
I've looked at it for like different things and then seen events and forwarded them to friends. They're like, you should go to this. Like I sent to Nick
That's
one
what it's
time,
for,
you should
yeah.
go to this chess competition. It's gonna be raining all weekend, and he went and it was great.
Yeah. No, every time Dems is like, Olivia, we need you to find volunteer opportunities. I'm like, okay,
Go on the
IVCSD
calendar.
community calendar, yeah.
Yeah, we actually get like 20,000 hits on our website a month, so or more. Yeah. All right, well, we'll take this back for revisions and we'll consult. This is definitely one we're consulting with legal a lot on because, you can get into freedom of speech problems and everything. So. Cool, that's it for today. That's all.
All right, I'm the chair. All right, is there any public comment on this agenda?
There's none right now.
All right, is there anything else we want to cover before we move on to the next agenda? Hearing none, moving on to agenda number 4, future meeting dates and future agenda items. The next regular meeting of the policy committee will take place on Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the office at 970 Embarcadero Del Mar, Isla Vista, California. Is there any public commentary on future agenda items?
Let me show you the future agenda items. Here's what we had as our list last time. We are doing these two right now. Oh, let me zoom in. So we have community center policy, community fire policy. Dependent care policy, oh, this is just here twice. Oops. Facility naming policy, we've actually have the draft here, we just have to bring it to you guys. Appointment process policy, we had said we wanted to do it for all positions.
And it's something that I've got, like, maybe I should sit down and work with you on after at some point.
Yeah, we can come up with at least a concept draft for people. Time card policy, this is just a routine thing we need internally that we have, but, we have to just bring it to you guys. Missing shit, this is again, just internal work stuff. So paid family leave is, a suggestion was we do the 100% paid family leave for parental, but should we consider it for other leave, like caring for someone sick? Because you can get paid family leave from the state for caring for someone sick or for having a baby, but we're covering the other 30% of your salary only for having a kid right now. So should we do it for other reasons? And then the spending limit and time off requests, which time off requests came up from like Carrie, and she's like, "Oh, do you have to notify the board every time you have a sick day or something?" She said, can we change that? And then the spending limit's that 1,500, which I don't think it's low. It doesn't have to be that much higher. I think if it was even like 3,000 or something, that's what we would be considering. So yeah, here's our list. Do you guys want to add anything to it or shuffle the priorities?
I just want to clarify with the facility naming process. That's like if it wants to be like the Munger Community Center.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. Which I don't see will ever happen. But we had a past board member pass away, and there was an idea or request if we could name something after him.
Exactly.
But
So
then we had to have a policy. It's not
Got
been 2 years.
gotcha. That makes sense.
For one day, we might have that policy.
I have it. I can bring it to the next meeting. But we have only so much time on our agendas. Like this has been an hour. and a half.
There wasn't a day
Yeah.
like, oh shit.
But we will. I can. So here's the thing. I mean, one thing I'd like you guys to do is tell me which ones you want in order. Because what's there?
Part of what I was saying, like, number one is you should not waste time on that one. I should put together the thing that
Oh,
I was
the
trying to do with it. So
appointments,
that there's like because I don't want you to like
Yeah.
not throwing work at you on that.
No,
one.
and it's not even the work to do them. It's like which order should we bring them to you guys? Because you only have one meeting a month, and we can usually only have like 2, maybe 3 days. So it's like the flow of things to you guys. So what do you want to see more? Like,
Well, what stuff do you say you have the facility naming policy done? What stuff do you have like?
I think we can
Really
do this
well.
one. The spending limit is easy to do. Oops. The dependent care policy, we kind of started looking at a draft, but then it was, I think we had a lot of different directions it can go in. These two are like half done. They're like procedures are written, but not a policy. But the policy is way simpler. It's just like says employees shall submit their time cards by this date, things like that. This pay family leave is a more substantive discussion on,
We've now kind of
prioritize.
Yeah.
But, okay.
all right.
I'll move this one up because you said you're gonna work on it, so.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I like that. Poke back at me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Come back to our agenda. We now anything good? Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, adjournment.
I would move to adjourn.
I will second.
All right, moved by Aguilar, seconded by Craig. We don't have to do a roll call. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 3-0-0-0, and we call meeting adjourned at 7:35.
Awesome. Thank you. Great meeting you guys.